Okay, we are now discussing Cain and Hevel, and this is entitled Cain and the Consequences of Self-Deception. So here we are, we're finally out of Gan Eden. Unfortunately, we got kicked out, but we're no longer in the realm of some kind of idyllic world, Adam and Chava, and a snake, and sin is outside of the person, and Adam and Chava were on this high level and didn't know how to deal with the arguments that the snake was making, and then Chava had eaten from the fruit and Adam didn't, so they weren't on an equal playing field. Now we're on equal playing field. We're on terra firma. We're on the world that we know of, and now we can learn about the nature of sin, because of course this first story has Cain giving a sacrifice. It's rejected, and he is, outraged, and he's based on a jealousy of Hevel, who copied him and gave a sacrifice, and his was accepted, and he was angry at God for this degradation of not having his sacrifice accepted. So what are we supposed to take away from this? These are part of the trials and tribulations of life. Sometimes things don't go your way. You get there are degradations. There is rejection. Does it have to end as badly as this story ended? What are we supposed to take away from this? So obviously, what's very important to understand is Cain did not look inward at all. He didn't say, let's see, why did this happen? Maybe it was the quality of my sacrifice. The commentaries say that sacrifices are judged by God based on your kavanah, based on your intention, your sincerity. If you give the worst of your crops, like Rashi says that that Cain did, so of course it's going to be rejected. But you have to look inward and say, I see. Hevel gave this the best of his, and I gave the worst of mine. No wonder. I could repair that very easily. But no, he immediately jumped to the conclusion that he was angry at God for being rejected. He was jealous of his brother, and now he was about to do a passion crime. God tried to intervene. God tried to use simple, straightforward therapy to try to dimensionalize the sin and calm him down. The commentaries say that, when you get excited, your intellect doesn't have a chance to kick in, and you need to sort of stop time and let it kick in, and that's what God did. But it all to no avail. So now the Midrash goes on to analyze in general what we can learn about the nature of sin. So first of all, as we said, when your emotions take you over, you're the most vulnerable. Another thing that they point out is that they say that they give an analogy of the dogs of Rome. It's very interesting. There's a case where the dogs in Rome were so smart that when they wanted to steal bread, they would go to the bakery and they would sit down right in front of the store and pretend to go to sleep. The owner of the store, when he saw the dog, was very nervous. How am I going to make sure this dog doesn't steal? Oh, I see the dog went to sleep. I could relax. I could let down my guard. I could even take a nap. As soon as the dog sees if you let down your guard, the dog knocks over the piles of bread and in the commotion grabs one and runs away. This is the nature of sin. It's deceptive. Okay? So sin uses deception on us and makes itself seem not as alarming until you let down your guard, and then it finds a weak spot and goes after you. Interesting, it also, the Midrash says that in some sense, sin is not even real. In other words, it's all in your head. These emotions are something that you have decided to hold on to, but you could let go of. Avram Avinu is cited as someone who actually looked at his temptations and said, nah, this is not something that I can fight against this. In fact, the Midrash gives another mashal where there's a highway robber and he's robbing everybody that comes by, and one person looks at the guy and says, He's a little weakling. Everybody's giving him all his money. I could take this guy, and he does. He tackles this guy and says, what do you think? I'm going to let you rob me? You're nobody. You're nothing. And that's sort of what sin is if you stand up to it. But you have to have the guts to do so. And then when you look it straight in the face, you might find that it's not really, it doesn't have the control over you as you think. The Midrash also speculates on what exactly they were arguing about. Of course, there's many different opinions, you know, whether they divided the world up. One got the crops, and one got the sheep. But some of the more interesting ones are, there was apparently a first Chava before the Chava that Adam eventually stayed with. This first Chava ran away, and but she was still someone who was made by God, and so they argued on who's going to marry her. Another opinion is that that Cain was born with one twin and Hevel was born with two twins, and apparently the second twin, according to the commentaries of Hevel, was a very beautiful woman, exceptionally beautiful. And Cain said, I am the firstborn. I deserve her. And Hevel said, but God likes me better. So there you get actually a little bit of insight into some flaws in Hevel's character, because instead of trying to calm his brother down, seeing that he's out of control, he kind of pours fuel on the fire and rubs it in. Okay, another interesting one is they were arguing of whose land the Bet HaMikdash eventually will be situated on. Now this is sort of dripping with irony, because the Bet HaMikdash was destroyed because of Sinat Chinam, right? Infighting, and here you have two brothers fighting over that, and so it's very interesting. You see actually the deception right to the very end on the part of Cain, because the Midrash says that Hevel was actually stronger than Cain. And when Hevel noticed that Cain was very angry, out of control, so Hevel tackled Cain. And then Cain looked up at his brother and said, are you going to hurt me? Are you going to kill me? What are you going to tell our father? And so Hevel immediately took pity. We're not sure if he took pity on Cain or he took pity on his father, but he let go. And at that moment, again, as I said before, he let his guard down, and then Cain struck him and killed him. So what you take away from this is that sin itself uses deception in its toolbox in order to lure you in. And we also see that Cain was plagued with self-deception. So perhaps the message of the Midrash is, you're really vulnerable to the deceptiveness of sin if you yourself are deceptive, and especially self-deceptive. In other words, you're not looking inward and seeing the cause of what you might have done wrong, but you immediately look outward and say, who can I blame? Who can I avenge? I didn't do anything wrong. I'm an innocent victim. So when you're under that self-deception, you are very, very much, open to the deception, vulnerable to the deception of sin itself. Have a great Shabbos.